Hey, everybody, this is Jeff, Junior Hockey Advisor. Wednesday night, let's talk some junior hockey. Welcome. I'm looking forward to talking to you. Once again, Jeff Colson here. Jeff Colson here. I don't drink caffeinated coffee except for Wednesday nights, and a couple sips in, and boom, it hits hard. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. I am very, very excited about tonight. Do me a favor, though, if you're out there and you want to, I would appreciate it if you tell me who you are, where you're watching from, and if you got a question at any point while we're live, please throw it on the chat screen, throw it in the comments, and we'll address it as soon as possible. And if you're watching this on a rerun, same thing. Throw it up there. We review the notes or the comments in the chat daily, and we try to respond to as much of that as we can. Depending on the popularity of the live stream, I was just looking back through some today, and it's been a while since we've had that 1,000+ crowd, but I think as the year goes on, we'll start building back up into those big groups that we've had in the past. With that said, I think part of the reason why our audiences are smaller is sometimes we get off track as far as what our original purpose and intent was. I started this 5+ years ago in response to bad advisors. As a junior hockey owner, as a coach, as a general manager, as somebody that had children coming up through those processes of dealing with those advisors, I realized that there was a lot of bad advisors out there. I watched bad advisors working with my players that I coached or on teams that I owned, or I was GMing. I watched them with my own kids and my relatives, family, friends. And I just decided that we had to do something to get out unbiased information, as unbiased as possible. Let's not think that I am above bias, because everybody has some level of bias. But what I try to do is to give an objective path that takes you down a road where you can self-evaluate at any point, learn the process, and help yourself with or without an advisor. Many of you will end up with an advisor. Some will, some won't. Not that big of a deal to me which path you choose. Talking to two different families today that both chose not to have an advisor. And in both situations, as they're working through the process, because the process includes highs and lows. We all know that. It's junior hockey. It's hockey. They're questioning, should we have an advisor at this point? And then sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. I'm not here to advocate for or against. I'm here to advocate educating you and letting you make the choice. So what are we going to do tonight? Why is it important? What is the importance of tonight? Tonight, the theme is back to basics. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to take some notes off of what we've found successful over the last 5 years. What broadcasts, what information, one-on-one conversations, dealing with parents and players. What are you asking? What are you seeking? And what can we do? Now, what's great about this is when we started doing this, we were the only ones out there doing anything near this. that didn't have an extreme bias. In other words, there were people that said they were news sources. They were really just advisors cloaked as a news source. There were people out there saying that they were an information source, but really were advisors. They were just looking to have a different twist on getting information from people so that they could solicit them for advising. We don't try to have you come on board with us. We always offer, if you need us one-on-one for an hour, we will spend an hour with you. We do charge for that, but that's not the purpose of what we do. We're here as a resource so that you can get educated on this. So tonight, back to basics. I put a list together. I'm going to show you that list right now of what are some of the basic titles. Let me get that up full screen for you. So back to basics, we're going to just try to get through some of these. And what's great about this is every single one of these, there's supporting videos on YouTube or on our Facebook page that you can go to and grab this information. So we're going to talk about understanding structure, and we're going to talk about, from USA Hockey on down, making sure you understand, or if it's not USA Hockey or Hockey Canada, we're going to talk about U18 versus junior, and we're going to briefly talk about these tonight. But like I said, these are idea starters for people that are just getting involved with this. Our audience went from one person to now we're pushing 13,000 people that are on our discussion group. We've got another 9,000 people on our general junior hockey advisor page on Facebook. We got a couple thousand on YouTube, and then you got a bunch of people that follow me, about 5,000 that follow me. All together, that's thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And why that's important is because, or what's important to me is not to forget that everybody usually starts out because they have an issue or they're trying to learn. And so tonight, that's what we're doing. We're just going to go back and go through these. So U18 versus junior, how to get recruited, the cost of junior hockey, hiring an advisor, reverse engineering, levels of junior hockey, college hockey levels, the dark side of junior hockey, and untendered and undrafted. And like I said, if something sparks, you're more than welcome to ask questions tonight. You're more than welcome to jump on and ask whatever questions you want. But at the same time, make sure that you're going on to YouTube or our Facebook page and looking up these videos. Almost all of these are titles of a video that we did. And sometimes what happens is, because that video is aged and it's 4 or 5 years old, people are reluctant to look at them. So maybe maybe I got to just update the videos too. So one way or another, we're going to get there. We're going to work on this together. So let's get back to the discussion, and let's get out of this page and back into just talking about what we're going to, getting into actually what we're doing. Let's talk. Okay, so understanding structure. It's important to know that there are, you could say 2 houses or 3 houses of junior hockey. And if you're going to play, it really is simple to know, if you're going to play NA3HL, NAHL, or USHL, all of those fall under USA Hockey. They fall under, everything is very transparent. You can find the rules on, all your deadlines. You can find the roster rules. You can find how you're going to get reimbursed if you get cut, who can be cut, how it all works, the underage players, visors, everything is available on USA Hockey under the junior section. And it makes life easier if you understand that and understand the hierarchy of not only USA Hockey, that's important. So, USA Hockey is the governing body of those leagues. Once again, USHL, North American Hockey League, NA3HL. When I say there's either 2 or 3 governing bodies, because the sister of that, or the brother of that, or the twin, the mirror copy of that, Hockey Canada, runs everything except for the BCHL, and you can pretty much say Major Junior Hockey is not a part of that either. But Hockey Canada has the ability to control everything in the junior ranks it's non-BCHL, and let's leave the major junior hockey for another day as far as a topic. They all have very, very similar rules. They work, and there's reciprocal rules, so they watch over each other. In other words, if a player leaves a Canadian team and goes to an American team, they protect each other inside that structure. Meaning, if you're going to leave an American team and go to a Canadian team, you cannot sign with that Canadian team until you're released via via USA Hockey to Hockey Canada, and Hockey Canada accepts you on behalf of the other team. Any financial considerations, those two organizations make sure that all financial responsibilities are taken care of. And that's really, it makes life much easier because everything's transparent, everything's above board. What gets into, interesting situations are you have leagues that are non-governing body leagues. What do I mean by that? They used to be called renegade leagues. They used to be called outlaw leagues back in the day. And that's only until probably 4 or 5 years ago, these leagues were called renegade leagues, outlaw leagues, whatever you want to call them, because they really just kind of kicked up, and there'd be 4 or 5 teams that would show up playing on the West Coast. There'd be 4 or 5 teams that would break off from another league in the Midwest. And they did not register through USA Hockey. They just played at the quote-unquote junior level, but they really didn't have a set of governing rules. In other words, because they were governing themselves, a lot of times they'd take really, really young players. You would see rosters balloon up to 35 players. You would see teams that would just disappear and show up 2 weeks later under a different name in a different rink in a different city. These things all happened, and don't get me wrong, some of this stuff has happened in very structured leagues too. But renegade leagues are not the way they used to be. Every league right now that is non-governing body leagues, and that would be the BCHL, the British Columbia Hockey League. That would be the NCDC and its components of the USPHL, which is the Premier and the Elite League. And it would be the EHL. All of those were at one point part of their governing body. The BCHL was part of the CJHL, which fell under Hockey Canada. The EHL and the NCDC were part of USA Hockey at one point, and they chose to go in their own direction. What does it matter? Well, part of what it matters is you have less of an appeal process when you work with a non-governing league. And what I mean by that is if you have a problem inside of a team that's part of a governing body, you can go to the team, and from the team you can go to your local district or your section first if it's the USA Hockey, and they'll have a representative for junior hockey. Then you can go to your district and they have a representative for junior hockey. Then you can go to the national office. A lot of times there's ways to bypass, the section of the district, even with their blessing, and go right to the national office and, appeal or clarify rules or issues and problems you might be having. So you have a much better ability to appeal, to get the right answer, to get problems resolved under a governing body. Now, people would say that also includes bureaucracy and that there's layers of fat and it's more political. Yes, that is true. There's nothing wrong with saying that USA Hockey has a political motivation to it. That's true. There's nothing wrong with saying that USA Hockey has layers that might be considered layers of fat, or just more layers. I would say it more like that. It's true. But it's still there, and it's still effective, and it still works. It might not be as fast as you want, and it might not always give you the answer you want, but at least it is a process to try to protect you. When I say you, that's the player. They really are not there to protect the family. They're really there to protect just the player. The family feelings don't really come into play in any of these situations. It's about what's right for the player, and if a player was wrong, on how to fix that. So once again, that's understanding the structure. We've got tons of videos out there. We got videos on USA Hockey, how the junior leagues all work, individual junior leagues. Just go onto YouTube. You can find those under Junior Hockey Advisor. Nobody's jumped on and said hi tonight. I know we've got people out there. I can see our tickers, and they all say we've got a crowd, but somebody come on and say hi. Somebody come on and ask a question if you want. Let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you as we get through this list. So the next one is, and once again, backed by a video, U18 versus juniors. That question comes up, and for a new family, especially that 16 or 17-year-olds, sometimes even 15-year-olds, maybe you're playing in a non-traditional hockey market. Maybe you're playing in a traditional hockey market, but you didn't make the AAA team. And there is a NA3HL team and a USPHL Premier team in town, and they're both soliciting you to play for them. Is it better to play U18 even at a lower level, meaning maybe not the best AAA team or Tier 1 team in town? What's the best way to go? Do you play juniors at a younger age? Do you play U18? What about the top end players? You're a really good, U18 or U16 player. You get some offers to play junior hockey. Maybe they weren't the USHL, but you think they're good teams. And man, is it cool to be able to say that you're a junior player. I mean, a lot of really good hockey players, they aspire to be junior players. It's like they can't wait to have that mullet, be riding the bus all over the place, sleeping in, playing Xbox, maybe getting their first time to chew tobacco and all the other, evils that come along with junior hockey. I'm not a chewer, never could chew tobacco, but I'm making a point there of all the glorified things that come along with junior hockey. Obviously, women just fall at your feet when you're a junior hockey player. All this just glorious lifestyle. Or do you stay at U16 or U18 and ride to games and practices with mom and dad? You put it in perspective like that, and it makes it very, very glamorous to go to juniors. People clamor for those things. But is it better for you? Is it better for you, and do you really gain anything for it? And I'm going to put it in a couple really easy terms. Let's first talk about cost. Unless you're playing in the NAL, unless you're playing in the BCHL, unless you're playing in the USHL, or in most cases the NCDC, you're paying to play. So, remember, USHL, less than 15 teams, NAL, just over 30 teams. That's 45 teams. You got 15 or whatever there is in the BCHL now. I've got these numbers I can pull up in a second. I forget how many teams are up there. But you add all these teams up, there's not that many opportunities at the free level. And then you get into the Premier, the NA3HL, the Premier, the EHL, the USPHL Elite, and you talk about all the Canadian junior leagues that are below the level of free play, which is all the CJHL for the most part. Holy smokes. You got a couple hundred teams there. So you got a lot of players that are paying to play hockey. Well, if you're paying to play hockey, what's cheaper? Is it cheaper to play U18 or is it cheaper to play juniors? In most cases, especially in the States, it's drastically cheaper, even because remember, you're usually throwing a billet fee on it too. Drastically cheaper to participate at U18 hockey. It's just cheaper. Is the play better at U18? Well, it's perspective again, and it's also related to what team you're on. If I'm playing on what used to be the HPHL or a Beast team or one of the better Tier 1 elite teams, holy smokes, there's teams out there that have half their roster or more that are going to play in Division I college hockey. They're going to play in the NAL. They're going to play in the USHL. Of course, that's a real competitive level of play, and it's good to play at that level. There's good coaching. The rosters are also about 20 players. You don't get over 20. You get a couple goalies. You get 6, maybe 7D. You get 4 lines. So 4 lines at 12 players, 7D. You got 19. You got 2 goalies, maybe 21 players. So let's round off to 20, 21, right in that range. Tier 3 junior teams can have 25 or 30 players. You get a certain amount that are protected on the roster, and then usually have some players that are injured, floating around, or are practiced with the team every day but aren't rostered with the team unless they're needed. So, you're going to get less time in practice because there's more bodies on practice. They dress more players for games, and across the board, U18, the intention is most players play a hefty part of the game. Don't get me wrong, it's not equal and it's not meant to be equal. There are going to be kids that get more ice time than others. In juniors, there are kids that sit on the bench in the middle of the bench and don't see the ice. There's kids in the stands every single game that aren't dressing for games. So that's a decision that you really got to be careful on, is what is the best way to go about it? Is it best to play U18 or juniors? Once again, love to hear from you. If you're out there and you want to throw a comment up, I would love to see your comments. I would love to know who's out there. I'll just go through a few of them as we're speaking. Matt, good to see you. Thanks for coming on. Here's a good one. Go Blue. Appreciate the video. Great info and help navigating through the confusion of the league's rules, etc. Hockey Dad. Go Blue, Hockey Dad. I'll be there. Leaving there tomorrow. Going to go watch an ACHA Michigan hockey game on Friday night. That's a Michigan State battle, which will be a blast. And that'll be followed up by going to Saturday night, going to the football game. And I'll be on the sidelines. So it's a nationally televised game. Look for me. I'll most likely have this hat on. So just look for this hat and you'll see me. So look forward to the weekend. It'll be a lot of fun. So thanks, Hockey Dad. Troy is on. Troy says, where's Mike been? We covered this last week, Troy. Mike is taking a different role within junior hockey that's taken up a lot of his time. And, his focus has changed a little bit. And we'll see if we get Bloomer back at some point. I can't promise that. But once again, he's now working as a general manager for a team, and he's still coaching 2 teams in Chicago. He's still the director of player development for Lone Star, and he's now the general manager of their NA3HL team. He's got a lot on his plate. So we'll as the year goes on, we'll see if we get Mike back. But right now, it's me, and who knows? Maybe we'll start getting some people to try to help fill that Bloomer void in the meantime. So, man, Bloomer's popular. Got another one popping up here. Where's Bloom? Hopefully I answered that too. All right. Another one coming up says, watching from Tampa, I have a 17-year-old who is in his second year of juniors. Thought it was best to get out of Florida to pursue hockey in Minnesota in the USPHL. Now hoping to move up to the NAHL. Well, good luck. I appreciate you coming on and telling us about the story. And very, very good luck this year and moving forward, moving up to try to get into that NAHL situation. That is the majority of people that are trying to climb the ladder are trying to get to the NAHL. The USHL, 13, 14 years old, most people have an inclination if they're, in that realm or not. And then everybody else is trying to get up to whatever the highest levels are. Let's see what we got else to. Just recently found your Facebook page and videos. It's been really helpful while going through the hockey journey. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Appreciate it. Sean comes on. He wants to know about the updates. Major junior situation in NCAA. Still rumor. Now today I saw some highly credible sources talking about Muskegon, Erie, Saginaw, especially talking about Erie and talking about Muskegon. All those are USHL teams. and about conversations they've had about moving over to the OHL. Uh, Boy, oh boy, that doesn't really seem to make much sense if you move to the OHL. If you're Muskegon, it might help because that would give you 4 OHL teams that are in really close proximity, even 5, because you'd have Sarnia, you'd have Windsor, you'd have Saginaw, you'd have Flint, and you'd have Muskegon. Their travel schedule would be awesome for players. Their budget would be better. So moving to the OHL for Muskegon, and even Erie might make sense when it comes to just the practical business logistical side of things. As far as the competitiveness, absolutely would be a bad move because you're just, no matter what, the USHL is what it is because of proximity, because of relationships that would take the OHL and the Western Hockey League years to catch up to on the D1 side. And because remember, every one of the coaches in the USHL, they've got these long trust-built relationships with all the different D1 programs and a lot of the D3 programs. There's a lot of reasons why that would be a bad move to move, except logistics and business-wise, it might be a great move. The other side of it too is if Muskegon did move into major junior hockey and played in the Ontario Hockey League, now OHL fans travel better than USHL fans. What do I mean by that? You hear about this in football. Their fans travel well. You hear that a lot in D1 football. Michigan as a university, you hear that. Their fans travel well. You hear Ohio State fans travel well. Texas, holy smokes, at the Texas-Michigan game this year, Texas fans traveled well. They probably had 20, 25,000 people out of the 110,000 people in the stadium or more were Texas. And it was great. As a Michigan fan, it was cool to see all those other people from a really, really good quality program. Muskegon would get better attendance because those other programs in the OHL, they travel well. They've never been to Muskegon. They'll travel to see that. And hopefully Muskegon fans will travel. What's interesting for those of you that don't know that, Muskegon, Flint, Saginaw, those are all the old cities from the IHL, the International Hockey League, back in the day. And there are still a lot of people that like that IHL battleground and those rivalries. And resurrecting some of those might be really cool, even if it happened inside the OHL. I'm not a fan of them leaving, but I get it, and I understand if it does, Sean. That's all I got. I'll keep you up to date if I see or hear anything else as we move on. Let's see what do we got next. Lori comes out and says, for us, travel would have been the same cost as juniors. He gets a month worth of travel ice in 1 week of VHL. So travel would have been the same cost as juniors. I get that. He gets a month's worth of travel ice time in 1 week in the EHL. Get it? Once again, wasn't really pushing anything except for the basic structure. 9 times out of 10, it will lean towards U18, especially when you start talking about scouting. Remember, the EHL does not have 33 null coaches watching every game. You go to high-level showcases from the Beast. You go to showcases inside of the Tier 1 Elite. You're going to see many, if not most, of the null and some of the USHL there. You won't get that if you're playing in Tier 3 junior hockey. That just is one thing you give up. You'll get some, but not much, okay? Juicy just gives me a thumbs up. I guess that's good. I'd like to see that. All right, let's get back to the topics as we roll through. Thank you so much for everybody that's participating tonight. Good to see or hear from you, and I know I've got a few more to get to that I'll try to get to from the other platforms that we're collecting chats from. So we were talking about that. Now let's just move on to that list, and I won't bring it up again, but let's jump into hiring an advisor. There are numerous videos on this. I even have, if you want it, put it up in the chat right now. If this is something you want me to do, I've got a real nice course. It's part of our teachable course, where you go through and it teaches you how to choose and select the right advisor, and goes through all the different areas of hiring an advisor. There is a ton of things to think about when hiring an advisor. First of all, do you need an advisor? What are you going to pay for an advisor? What outcome do you expect? What is what's the cost involved? What do you really get for that money? What are your expectations? What are your goals? What can they do what can an advisor do that you can't do? Now, there are people out there that I think are the most amazing advisors around. I talk to a lot of them, and they're good guys. Uh, there are a lot of advisors out there that I wished I could just. It's like, when somebody cuts you off, how you just wished you had the oldest, most beat up tank, and you could just run cars off the road and say, "Ha! If you're going to be an idiot, I just want to run you into the ditch, ruin your car, so you can never drive again." I don't drive like that all the time, but there are times where I feel that way. I think most of us get that feeling sometimes. Being in the hockey industry, I feel that way about bad advisors. I wished I had a tank. I'll just leave it at that. I just wished I had a tank. And if I had a tank, I could fix a lot of the problems in our sport. Just give me a tank and let me go driving and searching for bad advisors. And what do I mean by a bad advisor? I'll give you some of the things that I don't like about bad advisors. I don't like advisors that start telling you what they can do for you before they've watched you play 1, 2, 3 times, had numerous conversations, met you face to face. Is it a prerequisite that they meet with you face to face to be a good advisor? No. Should it be? Probably should be. Okay. I don't know if I'd hire a lawyer. I don't know if I'd hire a dentist, a doctor, without meeting with them. I don't know if I'd buy a car or a house, although my wife bought her last car without test driving it, without sitting in it. It still baffles me to this day that, she did it and I let her do it. I got to tell you this story because now you're going to be interested in knowing the story. And I'll get back to the subject. And our subject was, the face-to-face with an advisor. She bought a car. She bought a Mustang Mach-E. Her car the lease came due on her car right in the middle of the pandemic. There was no inventories at all the Ford and GM stores. And we, typically 100% we buy GM or Ford products. We're from Detroit greater metro area, and that's just the way we do business. So we walk into the Ford dealer, and we've been dealing with the same guy at the Ford dealership for 20 years now, 20 plus years. And he said, "Look, guys, I just don't have anything. I've got that Explorer in the middle of the floor. I got some white vans, a couple white vans, cargo vans or passenger vans." He goes, "I got a Ford Fiesta that's like a fuchsia color." And he had one other car on the lot. That's all he said. And so my wife went over and looked at the Explorer, and it was hideous. Had so much extra junk on it. She just wouldn't drive it. It wasn't practical. And the thing was, it had so much junk on it, subwoofers. And for a dealership, it had everything plus what the dealer threw on it. Just not a vehicle for us. She looked behind it, and they had a Mach-E, fully electric Mach-E Mustang on the showroom floor. And, our guy, Claxon, didn't even mention it because, we're not sports car kind of people, and he didn't even, tell us about that. My wife looked at the Mach-E and she went, "I'll take it." And Claxon said, "Well, that's a Mustang, Greta." And she goes, yeah, okay. That's fine. I'll take it. And I walked over and I looked at it and I went, "Greta, that's a 100% electric vehicle." I said, "You've never driven an electric vehicle. You never said you wanted an electric vehicle. Why are you going to buy that vehicle?" She goes, "I don't know. I just want it. I'll take it." She didn't sit in it. She didn't test drive it. She just saw it and said, "I'll take it." So we ended up getting now it's been a good purchase. She made a good purchase across the board, and she enjoys it. But I just had to throw that story in there. Absolutely very little correlation, except for the first little part of it. It was that example we needed for the face-to-face. But from there on, it just went off the rails. And I'll get back on subject now. Face-to-face, is it important? Yeah, it is. So, these are the things I was talking about are bad advisors. If they tell you, oh, I already know what school you can go to on the first conversation. Oh, I already got a junior team that I'm thinking of that fits for you in that first conversation before they've seen you play. No, 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 no. Please resist the temptation of an instant fix when it comes to an advisor. Advisors, good ones, absolutely have those thoughts churning in their heads. They're going, oh, I can slot him in here. I could slide him in with that team. It sounds like he's a good fit there. But they're going to do their due diligence. They're going to talk to your coach first. Maybe they're going to talk to some players that they represent that played against you, with you, were behind you. They're going to talk to line mates. They're going to do their homework. They're going to put the big picture together. They're going to put the puzzle together. And then they're going to see where you fit. They're going to pull film. They're going to pull stats. They're going to talk to, 2 or 3 of your coaches. It's almost like a job interview to get a good advisor. And I tell people this all the time. You want to hire an advisor, you might have to hear no from 2 or 3 advisors before you hear a yes from the right advisor. Because advisors should be, if you think of advisors as being very similar to an attorney. If I need if I've got a house I'm selling and I'm closing, I need a real estate attorney. If I've got an accounting issue that's going to, I'm going to get audited, I need a tax lawyer. Okay. If I've got a marriage issue, I want a family lawyer. Okay. If I need a will, I need a family lawyer. If I'm going to court and it's a criminal proceeding, I want a criminal lawyer. I want a lawyer to fit me. Every player is different. Position-wise, they're different. Size-wise, they're different. Education-wise and what their goals and aspirations are different. Speed is different. There's so many variables. There are great advisors that only focus on prep. They're very good at taking a kid and getting him into the right prep school. And they're pretty darn good at getting him out of prep into a Division I school. But they're terrible at Tier 3, or they're terrible at the USHL, or they're terrible with the BCHL. I know guys that are super, super good on Western Canada players and getting them placed in the appropriate American program or in the BCHL or the Western Hockey League, wherever. They're just really good at focusing. They know the talent, they know the market, and they know their space. I would never send one of the guys that are in Boston, they're looking for Tier 3 hockey, to one of those guys that are really good with Western Canada players. It just doesn't make any sense. So when you're hiring advisors, you really got to know what you're looking for. And that is by asking questions and getting to feel their client base. You got a good advisor when their client base are playing in the same. You see multiple players on the same team. That's usually a good sign. That's not a bad sign. You see multiple players in the same league. That's a good sign. But when I see a team that's got people that are playing AA U18 all the way up to the USHL, and there's 40 kids, another good sign is less is more when it comes to an advisor. A lot of times the reason why they say no to you is because you're a 2005 or 2006 player, AAA defenseman, and they go, sorry, I've already got 2 AAA right-handed defensemen. They don't want to compete against their own players. They're trying to get those guys placed. They bring you on. Your competition for them, their competition for you. It's not a good fit. I let an advisor represent my son one time, one of my kids. The advisor sent him to a team to skate with him during the regular season, along with 4 other right-handed defensemen. So really, it didn't do my son a darn bit of good because he was competing against the same stable of, there was a total of 6 guys there. They were all from the same advisor. Now, either the advisor's got to, select one of his children to be his favorite child. And so then it becomes political. It's no longer he's advocating for you as his top, student. He's advocating for whatever one he thinks he can get placed on the team. And yeah, he might look good because at the end of the day, he gets one or two defensemen on that team, but he's got 4 really pissed off or 5 really pissed off players and parents because they didn't get chosen because he brought too many people to the team. And that was a regular season. That wasn't even like it was a camp or a pre-draft or even a main camp going into the season. So anyway, enough with that. Hiring an advisor, it's extremely important to do your homework on that and know what you're doing. I bring that up because we got plenty of videos out there. DM me if you got any questions of what type of advisor to hire and how to go about it. I'll be glad to try to steer you towards some information to help you a little bit. Hey, we had a lot of comments coming in. Now we went dry on comments. If you got questions or comments, please do it. Hey, and another thing too is, really, if you haven't had a chance yet, and if you're not getting your information through our YouTube page, go on and like and subscribe to the YouTube page. There is content there that doesn't show up on Facebook. Most of the things we do goes through Facebook. But remember that Facebook discussion and our Facebook group have other intentions, and we use them for other purposes. Discussion is a lot of question and answer. A lot of times, our video content just scrolls right by because we'll put a video up and there'll be 4 or 5 other things that pop up, and people don't always look up at the top to see what's been tagged on the top. Make sure you get yourself covered. Jump onto YouTube, like and subscribe there. You'll always get our video content, and you'll know what's going on with the latest. So watching the time here to make sure we got time to talk about a couple more subjects. This is a really big one. If you're new to this is really important. After I get a sip of coffee, pure caffeinated black coffee that I drink once a week. I told by the doctor not to drink coffee anymore, but I splurge on game night. For me is Wednesday night on the live streams. What does the cup say? Chat just came through. It's a pilot thing. It's Sporties is like Howie's tape in hockey, and if you're a pilot, Sporties is the brand where you go to get all your little piloting. Pardon my French. Your piloting shit. You buy it at just like you buy it from Howie's tape. You buy all your stuff at Sporties. So that's what it means. So nice comment on that one. All right, this one's important. Reverse engineering. What does that mean? It's a phrase that I've been using in hockey for 20 plus years. You'll hear other people starting to use the phrase and actually use the technique more and more. I don't think I invented it, but I've been an advocate of it, and I probably am one of the louder voices out there that have been saying utilize reverse engineering anytime you're trying to figure out where you want to go. And what that means is it's pretty simple. Instead of saying I'm playing U16 or U15, where am I going next year? I got to get in the best situation for next year, and trying to look forward on things. Go to the end of the road and say, where do I want to end up as far as the college goes? Pick and choose the college or colleges. You can use more than one if you want, and work backwards on how their team was assembled. In other words, if I want to go to the University of Michigan and play hockey, I want to go to Elite Prospects and pull up the University of, or go to the University of Michigan website, and I want to pull up their roster, and I want to research all those players, and I want to know where they came from. What junior programs did they come from? After you get past the fact that 50% of them came from the National Training and Development Program, set that aside and see what other programs you're going to find at the Big Tens and the big boys. Where the big boys, it's the North Dakotas, the Minnesotas, the Providence, the BCBU, Michigan, Notre Dame. You get the drift. The usual suspects. Those teams, it's pretty easy to figure out where 95% of their roster comes from. They're going to come from the National Training and Development Program, especially University of Michigan, BC, and BU, boom, they get a ton of those kids. After that, and remember, there's going to be quick turnover with those kids because a national training and development kid rarely plays 4 years of college statistically. If they're a high draft pick, they play 1, 2, maybe 3 years of college, and then boom, they're on to play pros. And a lot of times they're making the jump right to the NHL. But the rest of the kids are coming from the USHL for the most part. Reverse engineering allows you to build all the way back down to as far as you want to, all the way back down to U16 if you want to, U15 if you want to. And then it gives you an idea of, okay, geez, there is nobody that played at the level my son is at now at the University of Minnesota. They all played in this league over here, or they all did this over here. And at the University of Minnesota, you're going to find a lot of them played Minnesota high school hockey because, Minnesota, really tends to pick a lot of Minnesota boys up or young men up for their program. So it's not a bad thing. Just reverse engineering, you'll find out that you're not getting a lot of Boston kids playing for the University of Minnesota. You're not seeing too many kids out of Florida play for the University of Minnesota. They've got their talent pool right there. They're tending to pull from there. That one makes it easier when you're talking about reverse engineering because you can see where the flow is real easy. What it also does is it shows you how to gauge the leagues inside of college hockey. Even though there's, multiple levels, five maybe, as I count them, of the different leagues of college hockey, there's drastic differences between different leagues. For example, the Atlantic is, a Division I league, and if you don't know that, that's RIT, Mercyhurst, Holy Cross. It's got Niagara's in there, Canisius is in there. For the most part, and there's a few I'm missing. Air Force, Army, they play in this league. All D1 schools, all have a full cadre of scholarships. You rarely see a Division I player coming out of that league that gets drafted into the NHL. Virtually zero players get drafted. Doesn't mean that a player won't leak through and find a way into the NHL, but it's usually a path outside of the draft process. Converse that to the Big Ten or the top end of the Big East. You're going to see a lot of, you look at rosters in the Big Ten, you pull them up on Elite Prospects, you'll see the little NHL symbol of the teams. If they're drafted by Vancouver on the roster, it'll have a little Vancouver emblem. It'll have a Detroit emblem. I can probably pull that up and show that to you fairly quickly just so you get an idea what I'm talking about, because sometimes it's easier to give you a visual than it is. So let's pull up a roster. And since I've already talked about Michigan enough, let's use North Dakota. University of North Dakota. I'll pull that up. And then I'll share it with you. Okay. Just give me a second. It should pop up here in a second. Don't know why it's not popping up. Let's hit stop sharing and start it over again. So we'll share it. There it is. There it is. And there it is. Okay. So this is the roster. Let me expand it up for you here. This is North Dakota's roster. And all I'm talking about is if you see on the right side next to their birth year, you've got the Rangers, you got Columbus, you've got Vegas, the Islanders, Chicago, Detroit. You just look at that. Those are all the kids that are drafted players. I can go through the whole Atlantic, and here's a way to do it. I'll just go over here and I'll put Atlantic in. Thought it'd be easier to pull it up. Let's just do the NCAA. I'll get to it one way or another. Okay, I'll just, I thought it'd pull it up by leagues too, but it doesn't. It pulls, oh yeah, it does. Here we go. So here's Atlantic hockey. If I get into Atlantic hockey, it won't let me pull it up, but I'll just pull it up RIT. So RIT is the first team listed. If I just go down their roster, you're not, and I can do this with any team in the Atlantic. This is a great program. I'm not, geez, you got Wayne Wilson and Brian Hills, even David Insulaco. Those guys have all been there 20 plus years. They've been to the Frozen Four. It's a great program, but it's just not the same level as the Big Ten, nor is RIT at the same level as the Big Ten or, the other different divisions of basketball or football. And so that's what you get across the board. So I just want to point out that, there are different levels there. So when you're reverse engineering, it's important to know the different levels. Hopefully that helped a little bit. Listen, folks, I could go on all night, and I've gone on all night. I've talked enough. Time to call it a night. I've had enough coffee. I've talked enough nonsense, and hopefully I've given you enough information to help. If you're enjoying this, let me know. Let me know if this is something you like. Let me know what subjects that we talked about you'd like more information on. Maybe new content. When you go back and you're looking at these YouTube videos and you watch them, if it's dated, tell me. Let me know. Say, Jeff, that's kind of dated. Can you do an update on that video? We'll be glad to. Now, we got hundreds of those videos, so I can't redo them all at the same time, but I'll be glad to jump on as much as we can and put together some new content for you as needed. If there's a subject we didn't talk about tonight that you want to hear about, let me know. Put a comment in chats. If you don't want to put it in the chat, then give me a call or DM me. I'll be glad to jump on and do whatever I can to help you out on that. Folks, thanks for bearing with me tonight. Thanks for sticking with it, and hopefully this helped. I'm going to jump off now. Have a great night, and thank you so much for joining us on a Wednesday night to talk